Now, all of this to be said, Jeff Traylor, UTSA football coach, last night, dear NCAA football, how does UTSA football report Power 5 schools who are trying to poach our young talent? How much evidence do we really need to make this not be a part of our game? Now, on top of that, earlier today, we heard some smoke about Drake May, the quarterback at North Carolina, and those going after him from Mack Brown. I can't say who they are, and don't ask Drake, you know who they are. Just look at all the ones who are getting all the top recruits. His thoughts about teams coming after his freshman phenom and quarterback who's coming back for another year in Drake May.
Well, I mean, there's nothing the NCAA is going to do about it right now. I mean, that's what the sad part. And again, this is also one of the things that is maybe, especially if you're a player who didn't want to be contacted and you're happy where you are and you're content with the NIL money you're getting, if you're just sitting around and you get a message, you know, on social media or on your phone and somebody says, hey, would you like to come to XYZ University? It'd be pretty easy to just go and show the NCAA, like, hey, this guy just contacted me right here. Here's the evidence. And
you know the only way you're going to stop it? In my opinion, start tagging the names of those who's contacting your players if you have evidence.
Well, that's what some people said was call him out, coach. And, you know, he can't do that for various reasons, I'm sure.
If he does, he damn sure better not be doing it himself. I'm talking about any coach.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. And maybe that's why. I mean, I don't know who UTSA would be going and poaching, but, yeah, I mean, so I understand that point of view. The argument that coaches really can't get around, and the one that can't seem to be solved with any kind of great answer is, if the coaches are allowed to do it, why can't the players? And I just look at it as it's sort of like, well, it's an adult thing, but then again, you're talking about college kids, so they are young adults, and so that doesn't really, you know, factor in, you know, as far as the adult part of it, because these are young adults. And so why, how do you argue that, right? I mean, how do you argue that, well, the coaches can do it, but the players can't? And so the only way you can argue that is because you put in some freaking rules. And there's a big crowd that doesn't want to do that. I'm sure the folks at Alabama or Miami or whatever can talk about the rules they want, but they don't really want rules. They're thriving on the lack of rules. They're absolutely thriving off of it. So I don't think that there's a big push from, you know, the top schools who basically get everything their way ultimately to change it. So I don't think there's a rush there. And I don't think there's really any rules that can be put in place that aren't going to go, unchallenged. So, you know, is there anything strong enough to put out there legislatively that you feel confident can withstand any sort of, you know, fights? And no, you can't right now, the way it's set up. So, you know, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I also think that there's just a whole portion that don't really want it to be regulated. They love the fact that it's like this because it ultimately ends in you know, the end game that they want, which is the top level, most highly rated schools getting the top level, most highly rated guys, and that cycle never being broken. And so I understand Jeff Traylor's frustration, but this is the way that college football is set up by the people that want college football to be this way. And there's just not enough of the I guess, clarity on how they could go about actually putting something in place that would matter and would you know, halt some of this. And so there's just no answers. There's no real concrete answers out there, and everybody like Jeff Traylor's out there looking for some, but there's no one out there. There's no authority that can tell him or tell anybody, like, this is what we need to do. It's just, I hate hearing the Wild West over and over again because we've also just overused it now, but there's no other way to describe it, really. I mean, there really isn't. That's just, it's the best way to encapsulate what it feels like right now. And that's in some ways awesome, and in some ways, for a guy like Jeff Traylor, incredibly frustrating. I can only imagine.
Yeah, most of the time, widespread over-deregulation of things leads to problems that you don't foresee. Like, remember we had a mortgage crisis? Nobody was doing anything about that for 30 years. And then the whole economy crashed because nobody did anything about something that if you had really, like, monitored it, would have maybe not, you know, saved some people some money.
So you mean they were reactive, not proactive?
Exactly. Yeah. Just like the NCAA. Like, you sit and wait. No, it'll be fine. Or not that it'll be fine. There's a few people like, hey, you know this is all a house of cards, right? That eventually it's going to come crumbling down. I don't know. We're making money. We're good. We're good. We're good. And that's what the big programs are always going to say is like, well, it's working out great for us. Why do we want to change it? And none of them would say that publicly. That's one of those things they would never go, oh, no, we don't need to change anything. Everybody in a position of power in those places that are reaping the rewards from this will say, oh, no, there certainly needs to be. But when it comes down to, putting your weight behind it.
Are only the rich blue bloods winning here?
No, I mean, there's a lot of people winning here, but that's the other problem.
Angelo State, I know what you're saying.
But there's other people winning here. But again, the ones who like UTSA, who's clearly having to fight this off, recruit his own roster 365 days a year when they try to put in rules in place to keep it to 60 days a year.
Yeah.
That's what they try to do. It's not working out, and there's nothing that they're going to be able to really do about it.
Here's Andrew Filipponi. He covers Pitt. Do you have the one before that? Okay. This is from Bob Greenberg. This is the response, and I'll read you the other one. Sooner than later, the schools will turn on each other and make these illegal offers public, going to get ugly. Andrew Filipponi saying that Pittsburgh head coach Pat Narduzzi said on a radio show today, he's heard 2 schools offered Drake May $5 million to transfer. Now, won't say who, but he knows who. Wow, says it's going to get out of control. It's only going to get worse. It's a sad, sad deal. Andrew Brandt, who covers the NFL, doubt the number is accurate, but not the point. Coaches complaining about players now having financial leverage rings hollow. The NCAA can keep hoping Congress will step in. Coaches can keep hoping things will settle down. But this is where we are, adapt or die.
Well, I disagree with what Bob Greenberg said there. I don't really think that there's going to be a lot of coaches ratting each other out here.
What do you happen in the Southwest Conference?
Because the nature of the profession dictates that you need to kind of keep things it's kind of like the mafia in that regard of like, look, we're not happy.
What are you going to turn them in for? There are no rules.
We're not happy that this family's doing this and this family's doing this, but we're all doing different things. And eventually, because coaches are so itinerant, okay, I was the defensive coordinator at this university, and I decided I got mad, and I ratted out this coach for poaching off my roster. Well, now I've eliminated a coaching tree from my possible employment options for when I do eventually need another one, because 99% of coaches will need another job at some point. And so that's the other thing that's policing this, not policing this, but keeping it under wraps and like they won't say anything, because again, there are rules, unwritten rules of the coaching fraternity about what you say and what you don't, and what you report and what you don't.
Yeah, I mean, if Jeff Traylor were to snitch on like Alabama, well, there goes any hope of ever probably coaching in the SEC or coaching for Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, so unless you feel like you're going to be at UTSA for the rest of your life, then yeah, you probably just have to sit there and stew on it. And the transfer portal is beneficial for everybody. I mean, it really is. Like, every school can benefit from it, but we're not really talking about the transfer portal in the way that it's supposed to be, set up. We're talking about like the overall premier players getting posted any moment in time and getting offered millions of dollars, which is a tremendous opportunity for them, and great that they're able to capitalize on that. But in terms of, the haves and the have-nots, yes, everybody benefits from the transfer portal, but only a select few with major donors and alumni bases, and it's the same 20 schools or so that are at the top of everything. They're really the only ones that can go out and say, like, you know what, we want to go get Drake May from North Carolina this offseason. How do we go about doing that? Not everybody can do that. Only a select few can. And so that's where I think the frustration comes in, is that, yes, everybody benefits from the transfer portal, but there are certain ones that are trying to basically just go compile all-star teams through buying them the best players from other teams. And, that's like Major League Baseball free agency, basically, I mean, is what you have right now. And there's just people that would like it to be more like the NFL. And so it depends on who you are and what your cup of tea is.
But even the pro sports have rules.
Collectively bargained rules.
Yeah. Now, and before we get, and someone will, coaches leave in the middle of the night. We're not saying they don't. We don't like that either. But here are some responses in the chat room. From Provo Cougar fan: portal free agency will hit academic progress of students. Hard to stay on track unless a player is a solid major like STEM. Most schools require at least 30 hours of credit for them to graduate. Phil, it's an ethics thing. Paxton, call them out, penalize them. S. Michael DeHart, it's the lack of ethics and integrity. Also, getting down to a couple of others from Texas Buckeye. You make all NIL money go into a team fund, and if a guy transfers, he gets none. Close the portal. We know that's not going to happen, but thank you, Texas Buckeye. Bob, we don't need rules. Who needs these stinking rules? Also, Mike Bean, I like the way it is. Run a program that players want to come to. Let's see here.
I think that's the thing is like some people like Jeff Traylor do, and then they get guys, and then, after a couple years of developing them and running that program, there's just a team with a bigger bank account and more high profile. And that's where the frustration is if you're a program like that is like, yeah, you have to be top notch culturally, but ultimately for a lot of guys, money will just win out. And so it just turns into a money game. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's where you could see the frustration from a Jeff Traylor is he's doing, in his mind, probably everything the right way and trying to keep Frank Harris around by swinging a deal with San Antonio, but there's only so much that you can do. And so you put 4 years into a guy, and all of a sudden, once he's, to a certain level, here comes Alabama and says, we're just going to offer him $500,000 to come here. And it's great for him. No one's arguing that. But that's where I'm just saying that's where the frustration comes in from the programs who are trying to develop guys and do it the right way. You can do all those things, but money talks for certain people and money walks for certain people.
Put up the Jeff